Overflows.
Shakti path, not a performance. Certainly, Shakti path is not a performance. Instead, natural and spontaneous process. A true energy transmission is an egoless, unintentional phenomena. Just as your breath movement is converted into music when flows through an empty flute. The breath modulation creates a rhythmic musical pattern flowing out of the hollowness of the flute. In the same way, existential energy begins to channel towards the person. Know this as process of energy transfer. Two things are important on the part of the one who is this energy, through who this energy is channeling. Empty of ego, overflowing love, and the recipient has to be ready and willing to receive this flow and absorb within. Since Shaktipat is natural yet spontaneous process, no one can do Shaktipat knowingly. One who claims to perform it knowingly is certainly engaging in deception. It happens through someone when he is completely empty and surrendered medium, through someone when he is completely empty and a surrendered medium, a conductor or catalytic agent. The person acts as a passage for God's infinite energy to flow into another without any conscious intention or ego involved. Certainly, he is fully aware that something is happening through him. The nature of breath movement, its slow, passive, yet rhythmic flow, indicates that something is happening through him. This is the way Sufi Tawajjuh happens. Tawajjuh is the Sufi way of energy transfer. In other paths, more specifically in heartfulness, pranahuti is used as a distinct technique. This primarily focuses on active meditation and silent witnessing. Pranahuti, or yogic transmission of divine energy by a master, is a central feature of the heartfulness meditation system. It is similar to Sufi technique of Tawajjuh. As such, heartfulness is an important offshoot of Naqshbandi Sufi tariqat as given by Sheikh Ramchandra Lalaji. This depends more on the master. However, Sheikh Hazrat Shah Bahauddin Naqshband mentioned in his teachings that now even the disciple has to make at least 20% effort for this energy transfer. My emphasis remains on individual inner experience and a rejection of traditional belief system or dependence on a master's transmission in the conventional sense. Awareness of the natural flow of life and breath has to be encouraged rather than the manipulation or external infusion of prana, the life force. Prana is breath movement or life force. Life force or prana is the vital energy or food for life that is inhaled and exhaled. Witnessing the breath movement is important. The followers need to observe the natural, non-manipulative breath. This is related to Buddha's Anapanasati Yoga or Vipassana technique of Buddha, practicing the gap between inhalation and exhalation as path to heightened consciousness and meeting the divine. Shiva used breath movement as technique for transformation through Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. In heartfulness system, Pranahuti is unique and vital form of yogic transmission or divine grace from the master to the disciple. It is described as an infilling of life force that cleanses the heart of all impurities, removes obstacles, and accelerates spiritual progress. This differs significantly from my emphasis on self-directed active meditation and witnessing. The ego is the main barrier to energy transfer from the master to the disciple. With ego, a person becomes a non-conductor. The process is guided by the following understanding. Todiyam vastu tubhyame samarpaye. Todiyam vastu tubhyame samarpaye. Your blessings are offered as my gratitude. The astral body is the way of radiance. The astral body is a subtle body made of light in contrast to the physical body of flesh and bones. The word astral comes from stars, meaning a light from beyond. Light is dynamic and constantly flowing, with the whole of life being an energy contact. And this is no specific conscious technique of using astral radiance to deliberately transfer life energy. However, a natural overflow and sharing of energy that happens in a state of egolessness and joy is very important. Remember, the astral body is the vehicle for consciousness and memories, traveling from one life to another until one reaches enlightenment and the cycle of birth and rebirth ends. In reality, energy transmission is a natural process. however, unforced flow that occurs through an egoless medium and the astral body is the subtle body of light that carries consciousness beyond physical realm. What is the difference between physical conception versus spiritual consumption? What is the difference between physical conception and spiritual conception? It can be suggested that while an awakened or enlightened person's blessing or energy and the presence that they exude acts as a catalyst for a spiritual awakening in others. However, it does not directly cause physical conception. The pregnancy is often referred to in this context is a spiritual pregnancy leading to the birth of a new awakened self, what Hindus or Sanatan Sanskriti calls as twice born. The master-disciple relationship is a deeply trustful and vulnerable one where the master's presence can help the disciple drop his ego and experience a kind of death and rebirth, and death and rebirth, a process of recreation. This process is what metaphorically termed as pregnancy and birth in a spiritual sense. The pregnancy as the interaction between master and disciple in deep communion is in a metaphorical sense referred as pregnancy that will lead to the birth of a new you, the disciple. There are specific conditions for a higher soul. No master ever teaches that an awakened one's blessing causes physical conception. However, the energy field of the master that surrounds the seeker does create conditions that could invite a higher soul to take birth. Remember, the conception in that case should be a divine moment of love-making and a worshipful moment of prayer and bliss. It is also important that the pregnant woman maintains happiness and love for the child. Thus, the idea of conception resulting from an awakened one's blessing appears to be a metaphorical interpretation. Sometimes it happens when you are in communion with an awakened one. However, it cannot be denied that the woman will not be guided mysteriously, and she deeply and strongly feels being guided by a mysterious presence as force. This is confirmed by her understanding and the way she has acted intuitively during the process.